Here we go.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing, Craig?
I'm doing well, David. You're looking chipper as always.
Well, thanks. It's good to wake up each morning and to be chipper. So,
Well, and it's good to wake up every morning, and you keep waking up every morning, and you look like us, old guys,
eventually,
eventually, right?
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's human nature. How do we uh, circumvent who we are? How do we? And that's an interesting question. Who we are? How do we become authentic? I don't know the answer to that. Everybody's always talking about authentic, right? What does that mean? Being real. Well, in films, it has a whole different application. Oh, by the way, we make movies, right? We have a few films out there that we would certainly appreciate if you saw. But we've had a few people asking us things about films. I'm not certain what uh, exactly, but what did you come across, Craig?
Yeah. Well, and going to our mail room, and I've written down a few of the questions. And to your point, David, and we've had some interesting questions. And the first one is certainly directed to you with a director question. Um, how do you, David, direct actors to come across as believable as a married couple? And most of our films, we have a married couple. That's I think that's a good question. I think what their point is to come across to have that connection as a married couple.
That's an interesting question. I never really thought about that. And to be honest with you, I've always approached things as actors know who the status or what their part is. They know they're playing the part of the wife or the husband, the uncle, etc. And as such, I also assume, rightly or wrongly, that the actors in their backstory application to their character, that when they're creating that backstory, that they put that in there. I am the wife. We've been married so many years, et cetera, et cetera. And they get an understanding of who that person is. Now, that's kind of easy to relate to because it's all relative, of course, to reality, right? Who we are as people and how we behave relative to that relationship. We behave differently with different people.
Right.
I'm different with my wife than I am with you, than I am with an employer, than I am with students at school. You get the idea. We put on different hats just like that. So I think we find common, and I know actors I've worked with do that. They find a common with reality. They know how their parents behaved. Yeah, we get a general idea how people behave. So that's what I look for.
Well, with that said, let's add a family because we've had this also where there are kids also in the mix. And I'm thinking, evil down the street. Now you have the dynamics of a family mix. How would it be the same technique? Now you've added kids to the mix. Do you have the same expectations with the family structure? Would you be viewing that maybe a little bit differently there in that
No,
arena?
same thing. Because reflection, film, art reflects life. Life reflects art. We have this balance, this reciprocity in it, and I always look to actors who understand the nature of their relationship to the other characters.
Mhm.
That's extremely important, and you're right. And there is no difference. How do you behave with your dad, your
Yeah.
mom? It's so strange. As old as we are, even now, if my mom and dad were here, that would be great. As soon as I get around them, I would be Dave, their son.
Yeah.
I turn into the son
Yeah.
immediately. Despite anything else in my life, the fact that I'm a grandfather right now
Mhm.
wouldn't matter. I would still be the son. So they understand that, and I think what's important is when you're casting actors, you look for that quality that they understand that. The Crumbs, for example,
Mhm.
the people that we cast understood the nature of the character. Okay, Maria Olson. As soon as I saw her audition, I knew she understood the nature of the character, who this person was. It's one of those things. You as an actor, not necessarily transform, but you apply.
Mm-hmm.
You apply the personalities that you have inherent in you in that situation.
Right.
And I know that sounds crazy. I'm not talking about schizophrenia, or anything like that,
Right.
because hopefully we're in control of these personalities,
Mm-hmm.
right? But nonetheless, everybody I think will admit they are different around different people.
Mm-hmm.
You don't go around your friends and, start acting like you're talking to your wife
Right.
or your mother. I mean, that's not going to work. So that's a simple analogy.
Well, you mentioned something interesting about Maria Olson. How would you deal with an actor that, let's say you as a writer, you're going to get some image of the character, right?
Correct.
And let's just say an actor takes the character in a totally different direction, which could be good or maybe not so good. And they've just gone in a totally different direction that doesn't necessarily serve the story the way that you like the story to be told. How would you reel them in, not to dash their creativity, to get them back to where they need to be, but without hurting their feeling, their creative juices, their ego? Have you had that? I'm trying to think if we've had that in one of our films. Nothing really comes to mind, but maybe I'm overlooking something because you deal with the actors much differently. I don't really deal with them anything the way you do. But have we had one of those situations, or have you encountered that
Well,
maybe in a play or something?
nobody's so adamant about their interpretation that they were upset.
Mm-hmm.
But I always allow every actor at the beginning of each scene to show me what they feel the scene's about.
Mm-hmm.
And I ask them straight up, you understand what the scene's about? They say, yes. I said, okay, you got everything ready? All right, let's take a look at it. And I let them have at it. Let's see what you got.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, if it meets what I feel is the correct interpretation that moves, yes, the plot, the character development forward relative to the plot, then yeah, let's get on. Let's film it. If not, I never tell I never tell an actor that was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
No. What I'll do is I'll ask them some questions. Questions like, oh, that was interesting. All right, let's talk about what your character's doing in this scene. And as opposed to giving them my advice that I think you should instead do X, Y, Z. No, I ask them questions relative to understanding the interpretation of the action,
Right.
what the character's doing to other actors or other characters in the scene, and relative to what that character wants in that scene. Do they want somebody to understand something? Do they want somebody to give them some sympathy? A little love, maybe, right? What is it? Are they looking for somebody to get respect from them? What do they want in this scene? And that drives generally and motivates what action somebody's willing to take. For example, let's say somebody wants respect and the other person's not giving it to them. Depending upon how important it is and relative to how that respect is outlined,
Yes.
person might get pretty in their face about it.
Yes.
They might get very disappointed and reject it and leave. So I let the actors show me what they're doing, and if it's dead on, I go, let's move on. If it's not, I'll ask them a series of questions, bringing them around to what I think the character
Mm-hmm.
is trying to do and how they're trying to accomplish this, which are those actions. Which, if I may just digress for a moment, I know you had some questions from people who had been contacting you, but I want to talk about actions for just a minute.
Please do. That's going to be very interesting for our viewers. Yeah.
This is an important subject that I often have with actors.
Mm-hmm.
I ask actors, what is an action? Define it for me. And they tell me all kinds of different things. It's somebody trying to get, from here to there, or doing something, and etc. And what they are confused about is that actions combine, two different things. One, it may be an activity that this character is performing, such as setting the table,
Yeah.
or eating, or getting dressed, or sweeping a floor, or even playing music. Anything, an activity, dancing, washing the dishes, taking a shower. Doesn't matter what the person's doing, it's an activity for the sake of doing that task to complete it,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that activity is. Okay. The second action that a lot of people get confused with activities are things we do to each other to get something from each other or to cause each other to do something for us, such as pleading. You plead with somebody to get something from them. Perhaps it is something a little more heavier, like confronting somebody, challenging somebody. What about if they're sad and they need some comfort,
Yeah.
comforting somebody? If you're being bothered and you want to just ignore them or reject them. So if you were to Google active verbs, because that's what I'm discussing, active verbs.
Yeah.
Actions are active verbs. They imply the doing of something, whether it is an activity, a task, or it is something you're doing to somebody, an action. You notice I separated them. Activity, a task, or something you do to somebody, an action. Actors do both in
Right.
scenes, and most scenes have both involved. So the first things I'll ask actors, okay, tell me what's your activity. What are you doing in this scene? You're making the bed, you're cooking. What are you doing? Such as in Love and Quarantine, a dramedy that we've done about the pandemic. The pandemic, there you go. These was a married couple. Been married for 20 years. How do you create that type of relationship in a film?
Yeah.
Well, that's difficult. And then this is a couple, a biracial couple that are together. So they're holding house. They're quarantined, love and quarantine. And they're doing things on a daily basis in the house, activities, keeping the house together, doing what they need to do. They're getting up, they're washing, they're brushing their teeth, they're making food, they're cleaning, etc., etc., etc. And they're annoying the hell out of each other.
Right.
Uh, so how do you get that? Well, again, actions are something we do to each other to get something from each other or to cause something, uh, them to do something for us, like leave.
Yeah.
Or shut up. Okay.
Yeah.
Telling somebody to do something, you're confronting them, you're demanding, commanding. So what I tell actors to do is to get on Google and Google in active verbs. You're going to get a list of all these things, and it'll be a combination of activities and actions. Take a yellow marker and highlight all the ones that look like actions, things you're doing to
Mm-hmm.
somebody, not a task or an activity, a chore, but something you're actually doing to somebody.
Yeah.
Memorize those. Those are your tools. Those are what an actor could use. If I asked you, okay, in this scene, your line is, I love you, but. Okay? Now, in the first take, I want you to plead in the entire scene. What will you do? You'll say, I love you, but maybe something as corny as that. So then I say, okay, now I want you to change the action to challenging. We all know what a challenge is, right? So now it's, I love you, but, oh, it changes a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, don't take my acting as worth anything, but you get the idea. I'm trying to demonstrate a difference between the two, right? And we can make it even funnier. All right, yeah, I love you. But, so just by changing the action, we change the entire mental projection of the character, what the character's mentally their state of mind looks like. Just by changing the action. We did nothing else. We haven't even talked about emotions and applying real emotion to all of this relative to a state of mind, producing that action. Oh, so let's talk about that. What first happens? Well, first, you have an emotional reaction in your body, a physiological reaction.
Mm-hmm.
You ever been scared? Sure, you have. What happens? Say somebody comes up and goes boo behind you. What goes on? Well, it's usually something like that. Now, believe it or not, even though that looked like it was all at once, it wasn't. First thing that happened is adrenaline shoots through your body. You have a physical response, which is generally something to protect you, some kind of movement that looks like protection of some sort, depending upon who you are. Okay. And then you have a vocal response, which is the mental response. So it actually goes ah, like that. But when we do it, ah, it looks like that. So when we think about it in terms of how emotions work, we could physically produce an emotion through physicalizing some type of action, believe it or not. There was a theater company back at the time
Mm-hmm.
that actually believed and worked on the premise that physicalization will produce emotion. And one of their examples was getting on a swing. You can
Mm.
just walk up to the swing and you're like, then you get on it and you start swinging. And as you swing more and you go higher and higher, and pretty soon your face is like, wow, this is so much fun because it's producing a physical emotion.
Yeah.
So those were examples. Grotowski, I believe, was the name of the guy who believed this and worked on that stuff. So again, getting back to your initial question, which was relative to how do I deal with actors
Yeah.
in certain scenes and situations, it depends on the situation and what I want them to do, what I think is important. I don't try to reel actors in. I don't try to control them. I try to help them create what I know they're already capable of.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to cast actors. Now, don't get me wrong. I've been wrong, as we both know.
Yeah, we've made a couple of missteps.
Only those in the know will know that scene 89 forever is embedded upon our foreheads.
Yeah, yeah. Well, David, and to that point, when you're talking, and that was really good stuff, man.
Okay.
Do you discuss with actors prior to shooting a scene as they enter the scene to emotionally come into the scene where you want them to be, or do you have that expectation of them, everything that you just mentioned? Or do you expect for them to come and emotionally full into that scene? What do you have any expectations
It
as a
depends.
director?
It depends.
Mhm.
I expect them to understand the nature of the emotional value of every scene and what the expectation is in the scene
Right,
of the character. Now, whether they can immediately achieve that is another question. All
right.
right. Remember, I try to cast people that, as we do, as you know, you and I are both involved in all the casting of everything we do, and we look at people relative the possibilities. So that means we don't just cast, you know, totally SAG professional actors. We will cast non-SAG actors
Right.
uh, because we think they have the qualities, and we want to give them a break as well. That's what we all need. So anyway, uh, back to that question. If they show me, because I always ask them, show me what you got. I let them do their thing.
Mhm.
If they're not reaching it, then I will start that process
Yeah,
on an emotional level.
yeah.
Okay,
And
I will,
I've seen that with my own eyes.
and I will do emotional memory, emotional recall. I'll help them get into that state of mind where this character is and bring them to that
Yeah,
point. Whether it's tears I'm looking for or anger matters not. Believe it or not, most people can do anger a heck of a lot easier than they can do sympathy. You know, love, expressing love, very difficult for a lot of actors. But anger, and that's why you see so many actors willing to play bad guys and wanting to play bad guys and whatnot. However, if an actor is not reaching it, then I will walk them through emotional recall exercises right there on the spot, because that's where it's done.
Yeah.
Okay. Those types of exercises, memory recall, sense memory, those types of things, they're great to do for practice as actors at home. I've done them many, many, many times, spent many hours working on things like that. But that's not where it counts.
Right. I agree.
Where it counts is on set.
I agree.
So I expect an actor to understand that value that's going to be required, the extent of that emotion, and knowing, because I work with them before we get on set, especially for scenes of that nature, that that's going to happen and where to go. So they have an expectation of what I'm going to do when we get on set.
Yeah.
And then I will walk them through that. So, yeah, it's a combination of both, an expectation plus the ability that I see inherent in the actor. And once I know they're receptive to me and the suggestions that I will make through those exercises, I can get them there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You mentioned about non-SAG actors, and I'm going down the page here a little bit. In regards to auditioning, can any person audition for one of our films? And if the answer is yes, how could they go about and doing so? How could they hear about one of our films?
If they're non-SAG or SAG?
Yes, exactly.
Well, we advertise on all the various casting platforms from Southern California to Northern California. So that covered all SAG actors just about. We also advertise on some that look for non-SAG actors as well, people who can join those platforms. We also have a pretty strong network, CRA Entertainment. We know a lot of people know what we do. So once we put out that we're doing this, we get a lot of inquiries from various actors, and we're open to everybody. Anybody can apply. I even get friends and relatives. Hey, right on, man. Hey, how can I get in the film? I said, simple, audition. They go, oh, audition, huh? I mean, yeah, something like that. Because that's the nature of the game. It's real simple. I had a director once tell me, because I'd asked him a question. What point do you think, I could call myself an actor? He says, when you got the guts to do it. I said, all right. He says, how about being paid? He said, same thing, when you got the guts to ask. I said, okay. He said, if they want you in it and it's good enough, they're going to work with you. I said,
you're going to pay me to do this? That's even better.
That's even better.
That's a great answer.
But I also had a director tell me one time, as an actor, he says, look, this is how I see it. Everybody wants somebody to be natural on camera. What does that mean? He goes, it's real simple. I have a simple answer. He plunged his finger up his nose and said, when you can do this on camera, pulled out a big booger and wiped it on a hanky. He says, you're ready for camera. Of course, everybody just fell out. I mean, what do you say to that, right? And he gave a lot of great examples, of stuff like that, what was going on. There's a scene in a very famous movie, African Queen, Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah.
And the African Queen is stalled upriver in a bunch of reeds and whatnot, still water, but it's reeds, and they're stuck, they can't get out. And he's got to get into the water and push the boat out. As Katharine Hepburn, she sits up on top, telling him what to do. And so Bogart's down there, and he's pushing his boat, and he's in the water, and he gets out, and he takes off his shirt, and he realizes he has leeches on him. And he starts to take them off, right? And I don't know if they were real leeches, fake leeches, but his reality of them being leeches was dead on and you could feel the leeches on your own body as he was pulling them off.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I'm talking about. How do you, as an actor, how do you put yourself there? Well, again, as the man said, as he pulled the booger out, when you can do this, you're ready for for the camera.
Right.
And I've always kept that to heart. I've taught acting in a lot of environments, public, private, etc. And I've always told my actors, students, never trust an acting teacher who can't do what they say can be done. So I've always demonstrated down to the tears to my students how to do these things.
Yeah.
And it's not that I'm a great teacher. It's because, believe me, I learned it from somebody. There's many great teachers out there. It's a matter of finding students who really, really want to do it. It's not sometimes the gifted. It's more often than not those who persevere. Sure, there's the gifted people who just drop out of the sky, great actors. I've met some, I've worked with some. There's a young lady I worked with, Miss Yurkovich. Okay. I really love this young lady as an actress. I think she's just fantastic. She was in The Crumbs. She played Victoria. And she didn't do a backstory. And she didn't, and I usually demand a backstory as a director from every single principal actor and some of the day players as well, depending upon how important they are. Mm-hmm. But I'll demand a backstory because I think it's important. I'll go over it with them. That was the nature of my training as well. And she didn't do it. But she didn't tell me she didn't do it till we were well into filming. And I brought her to the side and I says, I got to tell you, normally I'd be like, what? I go, but nothing you have done that tells me that you didn't do a backstory. I go, whether you did it in your head and you hide it, there, that's okay. I go, because, she is one of those people. I really felt that way about working with her. But for myself, I do a backstory.
Yeah.
I sit down and think out, what's this guy about? Where's he coming from? Why is he coming from there? All those things. But I enjoy doing it as well. So it just depends. I know that was a long conversation for a short question there, but
no, that was good, David. That was good.
Well, anyway.
Well, brother, we have some more questions, and I think maybe save them next time the likes of us are back on the porch.
I love talking about films, acting, directing, writing. I love art, period. Craig and I, it's something we discuss on a daily basis. Not just because we're old and have nothing else to do. It's because we're old and this is what we love doing.
Yeah.
And we hope that sometimes with our conversation, we share some enlightening moment with you. And if we do, and you have some interest in our conversation or the subject matter in any way, give us a call, drop us a line, send us a bird, a smoke signal, something, let us know. We'll be happy to talk with you, answer your questions, anything like that. Anything you want to know.
That's right.
We're sure we share. Let me put it that way. We share. So thanks again for joining us. It was always cool. We're having a short one today. We have appointments, not with the proctologist, so don't go there. But we have appointments.
Yeah, and we'll leave that alone.
Yeah, amen to that. On that note, peace. You take care.
Have a great day. Out.